cannot be with us today, who have stood patiently by us over the past few years as we navigate the COVID pandemic. Among many things, COVID delayed our arrival here by 2 years and forestalled the opportunity for our international guests to experience the warmth and incredible hospitality these shores have been so eagerly waiting to bestow on all of us. On behalf of everyone in the One IFRA family, I am delighted to say that we have finally made it. We are over 950 of us, in fact, from 58 countries as diverse as Argentina, Canada, Botswana, and New Zealand. I encourage you all to experience the wonderful city of Taipei, our home for the next few years, and to make the most of this tremendous country and its amazing people. We, of course, arrive here at the moment of great importance for Taiwan, the region, and indeed the world. The relationships between the Republic of China and the Beijing authorities has made the front pages across the globe on numerous occasions of late. Tensions have been rising significantly, and the geopolitical situation has this country, its people, and indeed all those who care for a democratic way of life very much of a high alert. One IFRA is built on the values of independence and democracy. As president, I believe Taiwan must be allowed to cement its status as a ray of light in an increasing circle of darkness, authoritarianism, and control. The historical, cultural, linguistic, and spiritual ties will forever remain between the Chinese mainland and this island. But the right of the Taiwanese people to choose their destiny, determine their future, live in peace is something those of us visiting from far afield can recognize as being vital to maintain. Presently, this right is being challenged to unprecedented levels, but determination to protect, preserve, and nurture hard-won freedoms is something we can all identify with. Unfortunately, we also arrive here at a moment of a great challenge for the press in many parts of the world. Much remains to be done to safeguard freedom, dignity, and human rights for all. Over the past, we have seen the increased use of lawfare to silence the independent press worldwide, the abuse of judicial system to exert pressure and censorship, deter critical reporting, and silence courage individuals for speaking truth to power. We all appalled by the figure of over 360 journalists currently in jail around the world. One IFRA denounces the ongoing criminalization of the profession and the terrible price being paid by dedicated women and men simply for doing their jobs. Iran, Turkey, China, Myanmar, these are the leading jailers, but they are by no means alone. We denounce the recent sentences of José Rubén Zamora to 6 years in jail in Guatemala and the closure of his organization, El Periódico. We also condemn Russia, where the jailing of critics and opponents of the current war is deliberately used to prolong the invasion and prevent truth and reality from reaching the Russian people. We stand with our friends at the Wall Street Journal in calling for the release of Ivan. And we call for the immediate and conditional release of all the jailed media professionals and an end at the legal harassment of independent press. Once again, we firmly reiterate our support for free press in Ukraine and underline our resolve to stand by our colleagues there for as long as it takes. Their survival is not only a crucial test of solidarity in action, but an existential challenge to will defend democratic values, of which freedom of press is a cornerstone. We are acutely aware that truth and fact remain too fragile. It is vitally important for us to prioritize and support public interest journalism and quality news, especially heading into the critical election cycles in a number of key countries, as Taiwan, where democracy is threatened like never before. Not here, obviously. People are actively stuck in division. We see that even in our newsrooms. Our very response to propaganda and misinformation is more journalism, ensuring the highest standards of rigor and independence are upheld. In this regard, we must recognize the immense possibilities and at the same time huge challenges and understandable fears of artificial intelligence and what it holds for our collective futures. What AI means for our newsrooms is not yet clear, but while it promises to be a game changer, we must be incredibly worried about not repairing mistakes of the past. A rush to embrace new technology without considering the implications, especially in considering AI, is potentially catastrophic. We must also continue towards our goal of making gender equality and diversity in our newsrooms and in our boardrooms not only a top priority, but a immediate reality. Similarly, we must increase our efforts to keep journalism and all media professionals safe, online and off, particularly women journalists who continue to bear the brunt of threats, attacks. And we cannot ignore, especially as we are here, the growing influence of China and its dominance over the region, and how we should all be mindful of the implication this has for a free press to report on an area of increasing global significance. Over the years, this organization has not wavered in calling out of China blanket disregard for press freedom, and we will not stop doing so today. China must be held accountable for its actions, particularly its sidestepping of human rights, of which the appalling treatment of the Uyghur minority is just the last to come to light. China is not friend of a free press, and we call for all those 43 of the journalists currently incarcerated Chinese prisons to be immediately released. And we reiterate our global community support to the 5 Chinese Golden Pen laureates since 1995, Jimmy Lai, Li Changqing, Xi Tao, Gao Yu, and Dai Qing. Their frontline fight for freedom and human rights represents the highest values of our organization and of our profession. Facing these main challenges alone is simply not an option, not in this organization. Together, in solidarity, we can help each other to surmount even the toughest obstacles, which is why, as an agent of transformation for the entire sector globally, WANIFRA is best placed to bring the profession together and guide it towards success. Last year, a record number of over 11,000 media professionals from more than 120 countries registered for our program of international and regional events, webinars, and training contest opportunities. Some 90 new corporate and individual members rallied WANIFRA in 2022, and nearly 40 members have joined us the last 6 months. These are 2 key indicators that encourage us to perform even better, to work even harder to deserve the loyalty and the trust of our members and remain an essential partner to them and the world press. I am particularly proud to chair an association that is said to be authentic. This is a very personal trait of organization. WANIFRA is unique in the sense that it engages in a complex and demanding areas that are beyond the reach of the most professional bodies in the sector. If WANIFRA engages, mobilizes, and empowers the media to tackle the industry challenges in more than 120 countries, our roots and purpose commit us to developing activities in support of sustainable, independent media in emerging and traditional markets, leveraging expertise, knowledge, and networks from within the industry, while advocating for the fundamental rights and freedoms to underpin a free and independent press. Currently, WANIFRA works with media in 26 traditional markets through Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and Eurasia. In these countries, the needs are great and unfortunately growing. Our engagement takes the form of capacity building and advanced training programs, financial grants, and advocacy support thanks to program-specific public and private funding and the vital support of our global members. This mission flows through all levels of the organization and lies at the heart of everything we do. Our work is guided by the conviction, held for more than 70 years, that media freedom is firmly rooted in sustainable, economical, independent news businesses. This belief continues to serve as a beacon for One IFRA's programs, approaches, and partnerships. And the World News Media Congress is the focal point for all those efforts. In it's a moment of reflection, learning, and a call to action to surmount threats and seize the momentum as we look forward collectively to a healthy future for news media business. In closing, once again, and I am extremely grateful to our eminent Taiwanese member, Yudian, thanks, George, for playing an active part in the success of this gathering in Taipei. It is an honor for us to organize the 2023 Congress in partnership with them and all our Taiwanese colleagues. Taiwan is a hub for the entire Asia-Pacific region, an ideal place for our international delegate to experience the wealth of its dynamic media landscape. Taiwan's democratic institutions have shown resilience despite growing interference from Beijing authorities. To be in Taiwan 2023 is a statement supporting democracy and free press at a time of a heightened international tension. The world press showed its support. By coming to Taiwan, One IFRA remains authentic to its foundational purpose and vision. I hope you will make the most of the coming 3 days to get a grip on where the global industry is headed and how news publishers are responding to the fresh challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Fernando, for demonstrating our determination to defend press freedom, and also thank you for your great support to Taiwan. And now I would like to welcome our local host, Duncan Wang, chairman of Taiwan's United Daily News Group. And Duncan will deliver his messages via live stream. Duncan, up to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. President Tsai, President Fernando de Yarda, Ms. Ressa, Ms. Ramos, members of One IFRA, distinguished speakers and guests. I'm Duncan Wang, Chairman of United Daily News Group. First and foremost, let me welcome you from all around the world to Taipei, Taiwan, the Republic of China. But unfortunately, I cannot greet you in person. I got hit by COVID for the first time at the last minute. My symptoms are not serious, but I think I should restrain myself from appearing in the public for the safety of our guests. I am so eager to be at the Congress, which took us 3 years in the making. I am very, truly sorry for that. And I promise I will see you once my situation turns better. Now, may I introduce my colleague, Managing Director of the group, George Sheng, to address to you on my behalf. George?
Okay, thank you, Duncan. Let me assure you, that was the real Duncan Wang. It was not from generative AI. And he was streaming live from his Taipei residence instead of Caribbean islands. He's really, truly very, very sorry that he can't be here this morning, but he promised he will show up once the antigen test says yes. Okay, I'll read remarks prepared by Duncan on his behalf. First and foremost, of course, let me welcome you from around the world to come to Taipei. This may not be an easy decision for many of you, since Taiwan has become the center of potential geopolitical conflict. We have received concerns of coming to Taiwan at this particular moment. But despite all the talks, articles, forecasts, reports, or even rumors about the safety of being in Taiwan, here you are. traveling thousands of miles to come to see us. We really appreciate this from the deepest of our hearts. The Congress was set to be in Taipei 2021. It was postponed because of global pandemic. And it has been 10 long years. The Congress is back in Asia since we last met in Bangkok. We are very excited and looking forward to seeing Asian perspectives in the global media landscape. So, this Congress is really very unique in time and in location. In the past 75 years, since the birth of One IFRA, press freedom has been our utmost concern. As we sit down here for the next 3 days, reflecting this issue, I would like to mention 3 of the pressing challenges facing our time. First, there are institutional challenges. We deplore and condemn the threats to press freedom in authoritarian regimes or countries embroiled in conflicts. But on the other hand, press freedom is also vulnerable, even in peacetime democracies. We have witnessed populism jeopardizes press freedom in many democratic societies. People in power sometimes use disinformation or fake news to evade supervision. Governments even use media supervision mechanisms to restrain or weaken the ever-important fourth estate. How press freedom can be genuinely upheld in any institution remains to be our primal pursuit. The second challenge facing the press freedom is that of technology. When technology advances in warp speed in the past 3 decades, we assume that idea of free market of information will enhance the quality of democracy. It does, to some extent. Regimes can no longer control the flow of information. But technology advances also create traps and loopholes. Search engines and social networks brought both answers and questions about their contribution to democracy. Now the rapid development of AI comes upon us before we even understand fully what it is. When the relationship of genuine press freedom and the quality of democracy is being critically examined, where might such further tech advances lead us? The third challenge is sustainability. The United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals aim to find solutions for climate change, poverty, and inequality in gender and human rights before 2030. They should be the high goals of our content as well as our workflow and business model. We must act as advocates or even pioneers. These are the key challenges facing our media colleagues. Fortunately, as you can see, this year's Congress agenda is diverse, relevant, and in-depth. I sincerely hope that everyone finds inspiration and that you return home with potential solutions. Lastly, I want to thank President Fernando, CEO Vincent, and the One IFRA team for the excellent work of organizing the Congress. On behalf of United Daily News Group, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending Taipei Congress and wish you all the joyful stay in Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Thank you very much. And our best wishes to Duncan. Get well soon. We hope to see you here. Thank you very much. Our keynote speaker is probably the best recognized journalist and press freedom advocate on this planet. She's an embodiment of journalistic courage and a beacon of inspiration to us all. She has a string of awards behind her name for her extraordinary service to journalism and society, including one IFRA's Golden Pen of Freedom in 2018. In 2021, she received the highest accolade, the Nobel Peace Prize. Please give a warm welcome to the exceptional CEO of Rappler, Maria Ressa.
Madam President, fellow editors from all around the world, and to my Taiwanese friends, thank you so much for coming together now. The title is The Battle for Facts, and Madam President, thank you for bringing up disinformation as something that we are all dealing with globally. It is existential for journalists, for news organizations, for democracy. I'll quickly go through this because I want to hear the President speak. So let me say, right now what you will see are a lot of ideas about, because I think this is a strangely exciting time, even as it is existential. A lot of the ideas, not clicking. A lot of the ideas here are in, not yet clicking. Nope. Yes. Okay. Let's see if it'll work. But a lot of these are here. So this was a day. This was published last November, a day before ChatGPT was rolled out. So you can say the books came out at the same time. But since then, what's been fascinating is to see the publishers of the world translate it. It's not only been translated to Hungarian. Sorry, I'm just going, yes. So it's been translated to Western languages. Click again, please. It's aside from French and the other languages you've seen, go ahead. You'll see it in Japanese. You'll see it in, next one, keep going, Korean, and click again, just this month in Taiwan, in Mandarin. In Mandarin here in Taiwan. Let's go one more time. The goal is the same. Let me just summarize this in one slide, this 300-page book. I wrote 400 pages. My editor cut 200. He said it was too geeky. So what is it? Click again, please. It's about courage, because this is what it demands from all of us. The courage to change, tough for power. And most of us who come from traditional media have held power, right? But it is time to change. But more than that, because in the Nobel lecture, I actually said that this battle becomes an individual battle for integrity. Because what technology has enabled is that information operations, information warfare can now hit the cellular level of democracy. The citizens who not only think about what democracy will be, but go to vote. And the way that they are influenced now is through information operations. So the first is that this is a person-to-person battle. It's a person-to-person battle for democracy. And please jump in. The second is that this change, what is happening to our democracies around the world, this is a phrase from Al-Qaeda, death by 1,000 cuts. This is literally what is happening to our values, our systems. The Nobel Peace Prize winner, Alexandra Matvichik, said that part of the reason Russia can do what it did is because we all compromised too much, too fast, right? So death by 1,000 cuts, it's what we lived through in the Philippines. And then finally, how do we deal with this? Stop denying. See the threat. Embrace your fear. This is how we at Rappler dealt with when Juan Ifra gave me the Golden Pen of Freedom Award in 2018. In January, our government tried to shut us down. Within 4 months, we dropped 49% of our advertising revenue. We were forced to do better, to find a sustainable business model. And Nietzsche was right. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So embrace your fear. Whatever it is you're most afraid of, hold it, touch it, embrace it, plan for it, rob it of its sting. So this way, you can move forward without fear. Right? Taiwan knows this well. So your courage will determine the fate, not just of Taiwan, of each of our countries, of your news group, but of the world, because this is getting everything up together, right? So where does it begin? I'll quickly go through this. It all begins with data. And part of the problem that we've had in talking about this in the public sphere is we think about it as a free speech issue, particularly America. And part of that is because there's a $70 million tech lobby that was 2 years ago that wants you to think this is content. It isn't about free speech, it's about distribution. And this is where it begins, data. The amount of data changes everything. So let's look at that and realize that our world has changed. In the Nobel lecture, I said that, you step out on a world post-COVID lockdown in a world that has essentially been decimated, and we must create the world we want. Click again, please. So I'll quickly go through this. You have to. Okay, so this is where we are today, and it really began in 2014, the first time Russia ceded the meta-narrative that allowed it to annex Crimea, and 8 years later, allowed Russia to invade Ukraine itself, right? 2014 was also when Marcos, the information operations that changed Marcos from a kleptocrat to the Philippines' greatest leader, that was when it began, right? We tracked it back to that. And when did this happen? What happened in 2014? We lost our power, folks, the heads of news groups in this room. Content was separated from distribution. News organizations you can hold liable. Your friend can criticize, but he's also legally liable. We are legally liable. When tech took over, it abdicated responsibility for protecting the public sphere. That's the fundamental challenge there. And here's the other part. It wasn't until 2018 that we figured out, and this is an MIT study, that lies in these social media companies, at that point, American social media companies, spread 6 times faster than the really boring facts we spend our careers as journalists trying to make interesting, right? So if lies spread 6 times faster, that's a fundamental value shift. Think about it like this. If you tell your child, lie, I'll reward you. Keep lying, and I'll keep rewarding you. This is the world we live in, and almost everything we write about are part of the cascading failures. Because if lies get wider distribution, then the checks and balances of a democracy cannot survive. And that's part of what's turned the distribution system. In many countries around the world, most people get their news now from social media. The Philippines, 100% of the Filipinos on the internet are on social media. Facebook is our internet, essentially, right? So that has turned it into a behavior modification system. Much of what we've written actually looks at it again as content, but think about it like this, and I'll show you an example. Free speech, pounding a person or a country with 1 million lies that turns the lies into facts, right? And the sentences I have said over and over, without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we don't have a shared reality. We cannot have democracy. Al Gore, who I spoke with a month or so ago, said that you cannot solve the climate crisis if you do not solve the democracy crisis. And that begins with the battle of facts, with our battle. Okay, so let's move to what was mentioned earlier. This isn't our first time dealing with something like ChatGPT, generative AI. We have dealt with the problems of AI, but let me quickly just remind you, right? Every time you post on Facebook, machine learning comes in and takes every post you have and creates a model of you that knows you better than you know yourself. It has all your friends, your financial dealings, everything you've posted, right? That machine learning then, that model is then picked up by AI, artificial intelligence, and that becomes the motherlode database that is used for micro-targeting. Micro-targeting is not the same advertising that we used to use in media, right? Now, replace the word clone. Sorry, I gave away the punchline. Replace model with clone. And that's what is pulled together by artificial intelligence. Did you give permission to these tech companies to clone you and to own you? That's a basic question. And then what happens is geopolitical power has stepped in to actually use this against us, right? Imagine if someone goes around, I go to a psychiatrist and say, this is my deepest, darkest secret. Then my psychiatrist goes around and says, who will pay the most for Maria's deepest, darkest secret? It's for sale. No wonder the corruption of our information ecosystem leads to the corruption of our democracies. But that's the first time, right? Part of the reason that happened is because democratic countries, the United States, the EU, Taiwan, didn't put up laws to protect us. Not a freedom of speech issue, but a safety issue, right? And we didn't learn the lesson in November when generative AI was rolled out. Look at, this is one of the least regulated industries globally. Essentially, we think about them like a drug industry. I give this side of the room drug A, and then I give this side of the room drug B. Oh, you people with drug A died. I'm so sorry. And then they keep testing in real time on real people. When generative AI was rolled out, large language models has taken every single one of the content of every single one of your news groups, every single thing you have said, structured and unstructured data, big data, and they fed it to the machine. This machine hallucinates. They don't say it's wrong. They say it hallucinates. And it hasn't been geared for safety, right? So what can happen? If the first generation AI weaponized our fear, anger, and hate, because that's how it spread, the second generation AI will weaponize our loneliness, which is in every single person globally. Check out replika.com, REPLIKA, and you can kind of see where it's headed, right? Now, having said that, our goal as news organizations is to survive. So with ChatGPT, that's the end of a long thing of AI, generative AI. But if the first one was exponential, second is exponential. So every day of inaction by democratic countries has exponential harms. What do I mean by that? GPT-2, all right, the way it works is that it goes over every word parameters, right, when it's learning, when the machine's learning. So GPT-2 had 1.5 billion parameters. GPT-3 had 175 billion parameters. You see that exponential. GPT-4, which was just rolled out, has 1 trillion, but again, not confirmed, and GPT-5 will be rolled out before the end of the year, right? What that means is that it is moving so fast that we can't control it. And a few months before this was rolled out, when OpenAI rolled out ChatGPT, there was a survey done in Silicon Valley, about 800 people working on AI, and they said, 50% of them said, that there is a 10% or greater chance that this will lead to an extinction event. Not of dolphins, not of whales, but of us. And yet they released it, right? You've seen Sam Altman going all around the world right now. He's been to Nigeria, to Indonesia. And he's talked about existential problems, but please don't be deflected, because the problems aren't out there, it's here right now, right? So we have to deal with these harms. So we haven't learned the lesson yet. Here's where it'll affect us. And if we see the behavior modification, the personal, we're each affected, because it's an E.O. Wilson quote. The greatest crisis we face is our Paleolithic emotions, our medieval institutions, and our godlike technology. medieval institutions that are not just governments, but sometimes news organizations, right? We need to move faster. And it's our biology. Strangely enough, what this shows is that we have far more in common than we have differences, because the same system is manipulating us. So let's figure out what that is, right? But that's personal, sociological. And I figured this out when we were tracking Al-Qaeda or Jamaat Islamiya's growth in Southeast Asia. Radicalization used to be of terrorism, but now it's politics. So the radicalization of politics, the algorithms, remember what an algorithm is. It's just opinion and code. Some tech person decided that they're going to create 1 million of you and just keep replicating. And if that's a bad algorithm, then the impact is magnified, like the exponential, right? So sociological, in societies, we behave differently than we would as individuals. And this is the Ash conformity studies from the 50s, the Milgram studies where people, good people, will actually apply electric shocks if they're given permission. That could kill somebody. I can go over those studies later. But the third one is the one that's scarier for me, which is our kind of emergent human behavior. This is changing who we are. It's mildly addictive, higher levels of oxytocin. It's triggering your emotions. If you're perpetually angry, are you angrier to your family? What does this do to our kids, right? How does meaning happen? How do we shape our values? So emergent human behavior is something that we can't tell from where we are today. So we're heading off into the abyss. And where this means is that if you don't have integrity of facts, you also can't have integrity of elections. There's a reason why we are electing illiberal leaders democratically, globally, and why those illiberal leaders, like in our country, when President Duterte gained power within 6 months, he was able to crush the institutions of democracy from within. And then they don't stay in their countries. Look at Belarus. Would it be a democracy today if it didn't have help from Russia, right? And certainly look at what happened over the weekend. Kleptocracy, Inc. is coming, right? Okay, so I have 3 minutes left. That's a lot to do in 3 minutes. I'm not going to leave you with this kind of, this is where it started in 2016. I'm going to quickly power through this. This is the map of, it's a network map of the group that carried out these attacks, both on journalists, human rights activists, opposition politicians, right? It's the same network and so completely mimetic that it is very hard, right? So this is the kind of stuff, after we rolled out the weaponization of social media series in 2016, all of a sudden, I keep getting things like this. Don't drink anything for the next few slides. Then, I have eczema, which is very dry skin. I've grappled with it with my whole life. This is my 37th year as a journalist. Well, they made it worse, look worse. And then they did this. I told you not to drink or do anything, right? It's the kind of dehumanization that was used in Nazi Germany. It's a dehumanization that led to the assassination of Daphne Caruana Galizia in Malta. And sadly, I'm not alone, right? I was getting 90 hate messages per hour. And what do you do if you're the journalist? Do you respond to this? It took months before Facebook took it down. But keep going, please click. This is a Facebook page, VovePH, and you can see they took it again, and they pulled up the nickname they used for me as Scrotum Face. I used to be embarrassed, but you know what? You need to know this is what is happening. Women journalists in 2017 in the Philippines were attacked at least 10 times more than men. I'm not alone here. 2021, UNESCO did this study that showed 300-page document that women journalists all around the world have to deal with this. Click, please. 73% experienced online abuse. 25% of that received physical violence threats. In the Philippines, by 2018, we had to raise our security 6 or 7 times. By 2019, when I kept getting arrested, I had 10 arrest warrants starting 2019. We increased security. And then finally, this is the one, online. Go back, please. Online violence becomes real-world violence. In my Nobel lecture, I said, online violence is real-world violence, right? Okay, so click, please. This is the UNESCO report, and they found that 60% of the attacks against me, a big data case study, were meant to tear down my credibility. Didn't work, thank you. But 40% was meant to tear down my spirit. Because these types of attacks are meant to force you to step back, take yourself out of the loop. They're doing this to women journalists, women researchers, women activists, women politicians, right? Straight across the board. So don't let them, right? Click again, please. I am out. Let me end with a few things here. This is the Election Integrity Partnership, their work. This is what happens when it leads to violence, right? Bottom-up attacks. It takes roughly a year for information warfare to come out into real-world violence. So this is, the Election Integrity Partnership showed that the very first Stop the Steal happened a year before the violence on Capitol Hill, August 20th, 2019, on RT. And then Steve Bannon on YouTube began the mainstreaming August 2020, a year later. So you see how it's seeded. Doesn't have to go viral. And then Tucker Carlson picks it up here, September 15th. QAnon drops it, October 7th. President Trump then says it top down, right? So that's what happened. The people who did this study, this is what happened to them. Click. Just recently, those researchers are now facing legal suits in the United States, right? So what's happened to us is coming for you in the West, folks. And let me just take 2 more minutes, Madam President, which is, what do we do? How do you rebuild trust? And click again, please. I want to show you what not to do. Apologies, Rasmus. This is something that we've pointed out, a trust survey. Please understand that when you measure the audience that has been bombarded with disinformation and information warfare, it will come back to you. You will measure exactly what they've wanted. Click, please. This is going to be quick. So this is last year. I sat on the board of RISJ in 2019. This is 2023. Click again. This is the stuff we lived through. This is a PR person, a government official. Next one. And then, here we go again, right? And then this is what my friend Rasmus did. Go ahead. Click. Which is to say, you can't use it. But I would say this. You shouldn't be doing this. Doesn't matter. We still deal with it, right? So after 4 years of this, I did speak up. You have to be careful about trust. This is not one of those things that you can do in a YouGov survey. Next. And this is part of where we are. Because they're coming for the researchers. If we do not fix this information ecosystem, disinformation, information warfare, a tool of geopolitical power, will reduce all of us. All right, I don't want to leave you with, let me click forward, please. Let me keep going. Technology, journalism, and community, right? Legislation, the EU is coming out with the Digital Services Act. Every news group should be demanding real-time data so that we can see the patterns. We've also started, along with Mark Thompson, the International Fund for Public Interest Media, where we've raised more than $50 million in the last year. That is going to go to independent media while we're holding the line, right? Global coalitions, go ahead, keep going. So let me not leave you in the doldrums. We have to go more, we have to go beyond journalism. It has to be a whole of society approach. And this whole of society approach was something we tried in the Philippines, and we won, right? Yes, President Marcos still won, elected overwhelmingly, but we took over the center of the information ecosystem. Because in the long term, it's education, In the medium term, it's legislation. All of these take years. And if you face jail like I do, like I still do, when you need to ask for permission from the Supreme Court to travel, you have to keep trying what to do right now. So this is almost 150 groups in the Philippines. Facts First PH, an influencer marketing campaign for facts. The first time 16 news groups worked together in terms of a full layer pyramid, a data pipeline cutting through. Jing Reyes, who received the award last year, headed ABS-CBN. What we did is we said every news group has a quota on fact checks, but they don't spread on social media because they're too boring. So the second layer is important. Mesh, 116 civil society, business groups, the church kicked in, cartoonists, they all came in and their task was every day you have to share those boring fact checks, but you have to do it with emotion. And what we found was that inspiration spreads as fast as anger. So our influencers, please don't ever call a journalist an influencer. Inspiration spreads. Last, the universities and research groups, we processed the data on the back end, gave it to them, and every week they told our people who was being manipulated and who was winning. And the last one, critically important, you don't have integrity of facts if you don't have rule of law. Sorry, the other way. You can't have rule of law if you don't have integrity of facts. So our lawyers kicked in for the first time, and they were far more aggressive than those exhausted journalists at the bottom. I'll leave you with this. Click, please. We use cartoonists, filmmakers, left brain, right brain, right? We cannot do this alone. Click again. This are the neighborhoods, the communities that formed. This is when we looked at the data. Click again. And what we found was that everyone who was part of this initiative grew because we did a data-driven approach that you move from here, these three quadrants at the bottom here, to here. Every single news group grew. Last. This is what happened. The partners are blue and orange. The boundary spanners, the yellow, is the reach, right? Visualized in data. Finally, last one. Keep going. Keep going. 10-point action plan. Stay at a high level. Nobel laureates, about 300 of us, along with civil society groups, said that this is what we need to do. Stop surveillance for profit. 2, stop coded bias. Because if you are marginalized in the real world, you are further marginalized online. And then finally, third, all of us in the room, journalism as an antidote to tyranny. Your courage determines the fate of humanity today. Taiwan has elections in 2024. So does the EU, so does India, so does Indonesia, so does the US. The clock is ticking. We must act now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria, for your powerful and important message. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now it is a great privilege and honor to introduce you to the President of the Republic of China, Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen. President Tsai is Taiwan's first female head of state and also the first female head of state in Asia, and she was not born in a political family. President Tsai has been in office for 7 years and was first elected as president in 2016 and being re-elected in 2020 with the highest vote total in Taiwan's history. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President Tsai onto the stage.
President Yasa, UDN Managing Director Xiang Guoning, Rapper CEO Maria Ressa, international journalists and media leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think you have to bear me for about 10 minutes after this wonderful speech by Maria. Such an interesting and fascinating speech. Let's give her a round of applause to thank her. And it is my pleasure to join you all today And I'm pleased to see, after a 2-year delay due to the pandemic, around 100 media professionals and leaders from more than 80 countries are here in Taiwan. I'm also happy to learn that Taiwan is a place one IFA has chosen to host its Congress on its return to Asia. It's first time back in the region since 2013. In the last few years, Taiwan has become home to many international media professionals. Along with your presence here, this is testament to Taiwan's hard work on safeguarding media freedom and the right to free speech. It also shows the world how deeply Taiwan values this important pillar of democracy. I also want to extend a special welcome to Ms. Maria Ressa again, Nobel Prize, Peace Prize laureate and a champion of information integrity and media freedom. Actually, Ms. Ressa gave inspiring opening remarks at the World Movement for Democracy's Global Assembly last October in Taipei. As Ms. Ressa eloquently put it, we are at the last 2 minutes of democracy, and if we don't have integrity of facts, we won't have integrity of democratic processes like elections. And she repeated that today. And this is the very reason we are gathered here today. Events like the World News Media Congress give us the platform to discuss important topics, such as the media's relationship with generative AI, how to form relationship with digital innovators, and tackle the challenges posed by disruptors, and how to sustain professional journalism in this fast-changing digital environment. I am also pleased to learn there will be a working lunch to celebrate the success of outstanding women newsroom leaders. Taiwan has been rated as one of the freest countries when it comes to press freedom. In Freedom House report on freedom in the world this year, Taiwan scored 94 out of 100. It was rated as free in the region. Under the civil liberty category, Taiwan received a perfect score for freedom of expression and belief. Its news media is described as, quote, generally free, reflecting a diversity of views and reporting aggressively on government policies, unquote. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit's report last year, Taiwan ranked as the leading for democracy in Asia. This year, Taiwan also moved up 3 spots to 35th out of 180 countries in the latest World Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders. This achievement is the result of sacrifices made by democracy advocates during Taiwan's authoritarian era and decades of hard work from our government and members of our vibrant civil society. However, in recent years, there have been authoritarian forces targeting this freedom we have worked so hard to achieve. There are constant attempts to extend influence on the Taiwan media environment. There are also well-funded, large-scale disinformation campaigns, making extensive use of internal and external propaganda to influence Taiwan's democracy. The freedom of the net, media, and social media enjoyed by Taiwanese citizens are being utilized to erode Taiwan's democracy. According to the Varieties of Democracy, that a DDEM project from Sweden, Taiwan has exceeded every other country in the world on the amount of false information other governments disseminate within its borders for 10 years in a row. The goals of such disinformation campaigns are multiple. They seek to further polarize our society, pitting citizens against one another. They also attempt to corrode trust in the democratic institutions and government officials. In addition, they aggressively promote the narrative that democracy is chaotic and inefficient. Therefore, a less democratic option should be adopted. Such disinformation campaigns have become one of the most difficult challenges for democracies like Taiwan. The rise of AI has benefited us all, but it also allowed disinformation to be generated and distributed at an unprecedented rate. This makes deterring disinformation much more difficult. The question then is, how do we counter disinformation while safeguarding the right to free speech? This means a democracy has limited means to deal with disinformation campaigns for concerns of causing harm to the freedom of speech. Instead of limiting, restricting, controlling, or even prohibiting the free flow of information, we have to respect people's rights and give them the opportunity to make their own decisions as to whether a particular piece of information is to be believed. In this case, the government, together with the civil society forces, is to help build the capacity for every individual to identify true, false, or misleading information. Therefore, public education, raising public awareness, is very important. What is also important is the supply of accurate, timely, and adequate information, and the guidance to think and consider from different perspectives for each individual to make his or her own decision. We also need credible third-party organizations for fact-checking. In other words, we're talking about a whole of society effort. Working together may be time and resources consuming, but this is the way we protect the freedom of speech in a democracy. I want to emphasize here that the media can and should have a role, perhaps a huge one, to play in all this. In Taiwan, we have developed ways to counter disinformation campaigns. These efforts require all parts of the society to act together. Since timeliness and transparency are key to effective defense against disinformation, our government agencies hold regular news briefings and release real-time official clarifications to the public. The efforts doesn't stop here. Taiwan's vibrant civil society and civil tech community have contributed immensely to combating disinformation. Some civil society organizations published thoroughly researched and detailed reports on disinformation campaigns. They also help identify playbooks on authoritarian information manipulation. At the same time, they have developed media literacy lesson plans and traveled around Taiwan to educate citizens from all generations. The civil tech community also developed chatbots for chat applications. This made fact-checking so much easier for Taiwanese users. We're also working internationally through the Global Cooperation and Training Framework, that is GCTF. This is a platform that allows Taiwan to share its expertise on relevant issues with democratic partners from around the world. In the past few years, Taiwan has held media literacy workshops with countries such as the United States, Japan, Sweden, the UK, and Italy. And we are expanding the locations where GCTF workshops are held. Through these efforts, Taiwan has been sharing its experience in combating disinformation with our international partners and friends. But this is not the only issue to which Taiwan contributes in the region and the world. The maintenance of regional security has been a significant part of Taiwan's overall government policy. We are fully committed to collaborating with our neighbors and democratic partners to prevent armed conflict in the Taiwan Strait, as well as in the East and South China Seas. Taiwan has also launched initiatives to make its military better prepared for both present and future challenges. These initiatives are meant to maximize Taiwan's self-sufficiency and preparedness, and to demonstrate that we are willing to bear our share of the burden and do not take our security partners' support for granted. Taiwan will never seek military confrontation. It has been working for peaceful, stable, predictable, and mutually beneficial coexistence with its neighbors. But it will also defend itself, particularly working diligently to counter disinformation campaigns when its democracy is threatened. To close my talk today, I want to reiterate the fact that media freedom and information integrity affects us all. And disinformation directly influences our way of life. Coming together to discuss the most pressing issues facing the industry and democracy is what we should be doing now. Lastly, I hope you have a productive Congress, but please also enjoy your time in Taiwan and take some time to experience our culture, scenery, and of course, delicious food. Now, I also want you to have the opportunity to meet with our friendly people as well. And I want to thank you for coming to see us in Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President Tsai. Thank you. Due to other obligations, President Tsai will have to take leave. Please put your hands together and once again, 再次掌声，谢谢蔡总统及莅临今天的大会。Thank you once again for taking time to attend this important Congress. Thank you very much. It has been an honor and privilege to have you with us today and have a such high-level start to our deliberation to our country. Thank you. President Tsai has a country to run. Thank you very much for taking time with us today. Thank you so much. And now, to the cornerstone of WANIFRA's work, drawing attention to the very real struggles of our community and to make sure that the public is informed and those in power are held to account. And since 1961, WANIFRA's members have been recognizing journalists, editors, and publishers who have sacrificed much for the cause of press freedom with the annual Golden Pen of Freedom Award. And this list of laureates is a sobering reminder of challenges we face as an industry, and also a sign of hope that together, in solidarity, we can overcome any obstacle. And to make this year's sword, I invite on the stage President of World Editors Forum, Martha Romas from OEM Mexico. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, a very good morning. It is my distinct honor to be here with you today. The Golden Pen of Freedom has been awarded by our organization since 1961. Recognizing the achievement and sacrifice of so many outstanding journalists, editors, and publishers from all around the world, all in the cause of press freedom, this year is no exception. Producing quality journalism has never been so difficult. Business stability and the viability we all seek is so uncertain. The skills needed for our newsrooms to keep up with the audience's demands in an ever more tech-driven world force us to compete with giants of the border media and entertainment industries. Never mind that our product is news, facts, truth, not distraction, escapism, or fiction. We are told success means to streamline, be more efficient, agile, yet at the same time we are expected to be more present, more comprehensive, to be doing more, a lot more, with far less than at any time in our history. And this is while our journalists are being threatened at an unprecedented rate and frequency. Safety and security online and off, especially for women, affects everyone in this industry. I come from Mexico, a country in which over 150 journalists have been murdered in the past 2 decades. We learned the hard way, but journalists' safety should always be priority number one. Perhaps most worrisome for the future is what is eroding the very heart of our passion, a disease that, if left unchecked, will gnaw away at our commitment to truth, our belief of journalists to give voice to the voiceless, challenge power, and hold it to account. It is the catastrophic idea that quality journalism, public interest journalism, the kind of journalism that allows people to make better choices, choose better lives, and live the best way they can, is there to be disputed, denied, and denigrated. That good journalism is simply just a story, entertainment, and there is no place for objective truth, fact, or accountability. Post-truth, post-Trump, post-democratic, however you call it, loud, lawless, populist voices are everywhere denouncing journalism and pushing back at all attempts to check their lies, call out their hate speech, and debunk the air-burst alternative realities. We speak about impunity for those who murder journalists, and indeed it's shocking. But there is growing impunity around the powerful ruling elites who do and say whatever they like and get away with it. In the hands of authoritarians, anti-democratic, fear-mongering revisionists, this impunity empowers and emboldens. It paints them as the answer rather than the root cause. It keeps people in conflict rather than in peace. Is it any wonder people around the world drift toward this when the price of lies is far cheaper than the cost of truth? The fact is clear, and yes, the facts are still important. We risk losing the battle to keep people on the side of journalism whenever we lose sight of truth and why it matters. Which makes it even more important to celebrate good journalism every chance we get. Our Golden Pen laureates are precisely that. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to announce the laureates of the 2023 Golden Pen of Freedom, two courageous young women whose journalism kept sight of truth as the Iranian regime attempted to rewrite history. Ilahi Mohmari and Nilufar Hamidi. The dead in custody, let's see the video.